I just went into the murder-suicide house on my street. Nothing had been touched since the bodies were removed nearly a year ago. Not even the mattress where the bodies sat decomposing for 6 weeks. Most of the neighbors on our street are friendly. We look out for each other. We text, chat, and say hello when we see one another, etc. It's a sweet feeling of community. In the past, there had only been one household that wasn't interested in being friendly with any of us. An elderly woman, mid-70s, we'll call her Maud, and her son, mid-50s, we'll call him Don. We'd, my partner and I, attempt to wave and say hello, only to be met with cold stares. Once my dog managed to slip out of his collar and run through their yard while Maud was out getting the mail. The glare I received from her while trying to catch the dog left me with a feeling hard to shake. You know that unexpected gut punch feeling when you become the object of a stranger's misery and hatred. Anyways, we learned quickly to stay out of her way. We barely ever saw Don. The blinds were always closed tight, they rarely left the house, and no one ever visited. I last saw either of them at the beginning of August in 2021. Don was getting the mail while wearing blue latex gloves. I thought it was weird. In early October, one of our other neighbors reached out to ask if we had seen Maud or Don recently. We had not. Suddenly, we were all too aware that their grass that was over 3 feet tall, and the mailbox was so full that it couldn't close anymore and papers were spilling out into the street. Obviously, a welfare check was called. The neighbor who had put herself in charge of directly communicating with the police called shortly after the check and told us to sit down. Maud and Don were both dead and had been dead for 6 to 8 weeks. It appeared to be a murder-suicide, the assumption being that he killed her. I paced the rest of the day in front of my living room windows, watching the crime scene van pull up, the officers in and out of the front door, taking breaks to somberly chat in the front yard. And then after a few hours, out came the body bags. The smell was something I'd never experienced before and will never forget. The following weeks, I thought of how many times I had walked by that house with my son and dog while 2 bodies had sat rotting. I stayed up for hours a few nights trying to find out anything I could. Nothing. No news stories, crime reports, nothing. So I dug into Maud's history. All I could find was that she had been buried in a field north of town dedicated to the unclaimed. I kept a close watch on the house and researched the legal proceedings it would go through since there was no kin. Looking at that house had always felt cold and sad before, but now it felt dark too. Haunted. I became obsessed with Maud's story with no way of getting answers. Her house just staring back at me blankly every single day. Back in the spring, my young son and I were out catching fireflies. We would stand still, waiting for one to blink and run in that direction. It took us up and down the street multiple times. I know this is such a small, silly detail, but that night I stared into Maud's yard for minutes at a time, waiting to see a firefly, and I swear not a single firefly blinked over there. I became so bothered by it that I stared longer, sure that if I just stared long enough I would see one, but nothing. Complete stillness and darkness. I told my husband that I hoped someone would buy the property and knock the house down. No one had any business living there now. Today, around a year after they died, the doors were opened and people I hadn't seen before were in and out, carrying bag after bag of what looked like junk. I texted a neighbor and asked for intel. He said the house and all of its belongings had been collectively sold and bought at an auction 2 weeks ago. These were the new owners, probably getting ready to flip the house. I typically don't shove myself into situations, but I had just spent way too much time thinking about Maud, wondering who she was, why she was so angry, imagining what strange life her and her son had been living, and what their last moments were like. I knew I'd regret it forever if I didn't ask them what it was like inside. So I did, and they invited me in. One step into the front door and more puzzle pieces fell into place. This was a hoarder home. There was barely anywhere to put my feet. Stacks on stacks of old fine china, pots and pans, vintage books and records, knickknacks, and countless boxes filled with God knows what from the floor to the ceiling. The woman who had led me inside said, "The mattress where it happened is still here. Do you want to see it?" Slightly afraid that she'd think I was completely demented but far more curious, I said that of course I wanted to see it. She led me to a bedroom through piles and leaning stacks of junk. She walked into a cramped small bedroom with a twin-sized bed and pulled the blanket back. If you've seen what decomposition stains look like, then you can imagine what I saw. After processing, I asked, "So this is where Maud was found?" "I think they were both in here. I'm trying to piece it all together. I haven't even started in the other corner bedroom, but I'm hoping it'll give me some answers. I'll be here organizing and sorting over the next few days. You're welcome to join me if you'd like." I told her that I would love nothing more. So after all of these months, I'm excited to have a chance to get some answers to everything I've been wondering, to get a sense of who Maud was, to possibly find a way to honor what seems to have been a very sad life, to maybe get some clues into why her son murdered her. Her son who, I found out shortly after seeing the house, was a deeply troubled sex offender who was charged by the FBI for child pornography and soliciting a minor in 2014, and to hopefully do it without any bad energy attaching itself to me. I do keep wondering why, if this was a murder-suicide, did the police not do a deeper investigation? Is it because there were no kin to care? Anyone have insight?